What's going on, everyone? Homer here. Welcome to the Stoner Man Spoiler Review, brought to you by StonerManShow.com. This is the only podcast on the internet where you're part of the Roto, part of the chill session, so to speak. And today we are having a spoiler review for Suicide Squad. That's right, spoiler heavy. So this is for those who already seen the movie. If you have not, I recommend putting this in your bookmark and coming back. I'm just going to start off by saying, personally, I really love this film. It wasn't perfect, but I felt David Ayer brought a lot to the table. I hear all the hate on the internet, especially about the villain, but for the most part, I felt like most of the on-screen adaptations were pretty phenomenal, especially with Amanda Waller, who I felt was actually the real villain of the movie, because if you think about it, one, she controlled Enchantress, and two, she really fucked over Suicide Squad at the end of the movie, and she's a pretty prominent villain in the comic books. And I feel like they adapted her perfectly. You love to hate her, you know what I mean? And you also have to keep in mind that they needed a villain that was like big enough to form a team together, but not so big that the entire Justice League formed together. Or, for example, like they have to have a villain where the Flash couldn't show up, or Batman. It had to be like small scale like that. And I thought Enchantress was an interesting choice. Thought the ending could have been a lot better. But come on, you'd be lying if you didn't say that Diablo scene where he transforms wasn't badass. I really love that scene. And this movie is filled with all kinds of small sequences I really love. Like the small sequence with the showing Harley Quinn in her original outfit, inspired by artist Alex Ross. I felt like that scene was right from the artwork itself. It was really cool. And there's a lot of dope moments in that for comic book fans out there, and I love that they brought Katana to the big screen. Her sword could literally capture souls. That was beyond epic. But other than the villain, I felt like the movie focused entirely on the squad itself, and I thought that was a really smart decision, because the villain was just kind of a side note if you really think about it, because they really focus on the squad. Even right before the end of the movie, they like huddle up in the bar scene, which is many people's favorite scene in the movie. Even at the end of the movie, it focuses on the squad's desires for a better life and whatnot, and it really focuses on them more than the villain, which is really cool because it's called Suicide Squad, not Enchantress dancing around at the end of the movie. And that's really cool because it gets us attached to the villains of the DCEU, which is something I felt like Marvel's been lacking. They've had some cool villains, but for the most part, they're one-hit wonders, one-note villains. And that's one of my biggest gripe about the Marvel movies, is I do not care about their villains. And now the DCEU has a whole movie about the villains to get us attached to them, which I really dug. And I'm glad that they portrayed all the villains right. And now I'm going to get to the biggest part of the movie, the Joker. A lot of people are hating on it. Well, actually, I say it's really mixed, 50-50. And I gotta say, there wasn't enough for me to be entirely sold on the Joker. We got about 7 minutes of screen time. And I did like what I saw, but the laugh was just okay, but it's like a whole new direction. It's like a Scarface Joker. And I like that they sprinkled him in this movie to get us used to him before the Batman standalone film, which we know he's definitely going to be a part of. And now Harley Quinn too. And I really love their relationship overall. And I think that's really smart because at first I was scratching my head, why is Suicide Squad the third film in the DCEU? But now it kind of makes sense. Now we have development for the villains. Now when the villains and heroes square off, it's going to be that much more epic, and I cannot wait to see it. And also this film also gives me a little more tidbit into why they killed off Superman, because the death of Superman inspired the group of metahumans to actually get together at the end of the day. And another thing that I loved that I didn't think I would love so much was Will Smith being the leader of the Suicide Squad. I thought he nailed it. I think it's just because Will Smith's been a little rocky recently with movies such as After Earth and whatnot, but he really knocked it out of the park. I bought him as Deadshot. I love Deadshot more as a villain now. I cannot wait to see more Deadshot down the line, especially Suicide Squad 2 or Batman. But I definitely don't want him to get his own standalone movie, which has been rumored. Nah, keep him as a side character, leader of the Suicide Squad. That's where he belongs. Keep him there. And overall, I thought there was just so much for the comic book nerds to enjoy in this movie. But now it's time to get to some cons. Personally, this first one's not too big of a con for me, but I know for some fans that they did not like the new adaptation of Killer Croc, and I could see it. Personally, it didn't offend me too much because I've always thought Killer Croc's been more of a boring character in the comics, but I did love him in Arkham Asylum. I thought they did him really well there. So, although I know it's not faithful to the comics, I still didn't mind the new Killer Croc, but I could see why people would hate it. And yeah, I'm not even gonna lie, the ending fight scene could have been better, But like I was saying earlier, that Diablo transformation and him fighting it out, that was so epic. I thought like it was better than some other throwaway villains, such as the villain of Thor 2. Do you remember who the villain of that movie was? Or countless others in other movies like Fantastic Four. Do you guys remember that ending sequence? Literally, the ending fight scene is Doctor Doom throwing rocks at the Fantastic Four. So I thought that this was at least a little better done. And as far as Shuiden villains go, as an Enchantress, I felt like she was okay. I've seen a lot worse, like I was saying, but still could have been a lot better for what I was hoping for this film. And we saw some really cool action sequences, like when Will Smith on top of the car is blowing away her minions, her like bubbly-eyed minions. I've seen a lot of hate online about how like the movie doesn't make sense and whatnot, and bad editing, but I disagree. I thought it had great editing, and I think the movie made sense. I don't know what didn't make sense to people. I try to ask them what didn't make sense. I don't really get a clear answer. I felt like the story was very straightforward and not very confusing at all. So that's one thing that's confused me. But there's one huge con that I don't see anyone else pointing out that I had to like, when this happened on film, I just rolled my eyes a little bit. It's the scene at the end where Will Smith gets the book, the top secret book. He finds Amanda Waller's book in her car, just randomly, plot device, and somehow he manages to read like the whole thing. It's like a thick old thesaurus sized book, and it's just ridiculous. And he's like, did you get to the part about my backstory? And Will Smith's like, yeah. I'm like, how did you read all that in a matter of seconds? I thought that was kind of cheesy, and there are a couple moments like that in the movie, but I felt like there's just too much to love about this movie to hate on it. And now, using our unique rating system, where at the bottom we have resin. That's the black residue you scrape after you smoke a bowl. The weakest high you get, it's mostly for people who hate themselves. Then we got mids. That's your typical ditch brick weed. It gets you a good buzz, but definitely has its problems. Probably a good time killer for hardcore fans. Then we got dank. That gets you nice and baked. The movie is exceptional. Most people probably going to get their fix out of it, but could still use some work. Then we got wax. That gets you so blazed you start seeing walls melting, trippy sequences from the movie, and it's pretty much a perfect score, guaranteed to get you high. And for Suicide Squad, I'm going to give it a wax plus, because I had such a fun time at the theaters with such a unique soundtrack. It was almost like a movie, like a music video type feel, which was awesome for this blockbuster movie. I'm not looking for Scorsese in these films. That was a fun blockbuster movie, and I plan on seeing it again tomorrow at the drive-in, actually, yeah. So I'm really excited to see it again, so that's a good sign. Like I said earlier, it really gets us attached to the villains of the DCU, which has been lacking at Marvel, and I feel like this and Batman vs. Superman will be greatly appreciated down the line as the DCEU starts to unravel. I feel like people will start to be less harsh on these movies. I feel like they'll accept them and have a fun time with them. Although I do see why some people wouldn't like this film. It is really dark and has some kind of iffy moments, but overall I loved it. That's why it gets a wax plus. I just want to remind some people that remember back when the MCU first started. Look at their lineup. It had Iron Man, which I'm not going to lie, huge banger. I love Iron Man. It's better than every DC movie so far. I'll give you that. But then after that we got Incredible Hulk, which is shaky. Then we got Iron Man 2, which is generally hated by most. And then we have Captain America First Avenger, which I think is just abysmal, a poor film. So that's 3 bad films by Marvel in a row, and 3 shaky films by DC. Although I love these films, I know a lot of people don't care for them, but I just say keep to it, because Marvel had a shaky start too. They had to learn just like DC is learning. So let's all just stop being fanboys about it, and let's unite and just be comic book fans. That's what I ask. Well, that'll do it for this spoiler-filled review. Please leave your comments below. I love to talk to the fans. I want to hear your insight, why you did or did not like this movie. And please, if you're listening this far, you might as well comment, rate, and subscribe. Let's get lifted together, friends, more often. And if you like what you heard, also visit our Kickstarter page at stonermanshow.com. It's filled with memes, stories that I personally wrote, and all kinds of other fun stuff. We're trying to raise money to fund a pilot episode for our show known as Stoner Man. It's an animated sitcom which is going to knock your socks off, I promise you. I cannot wait for the world to see it. All it's going to take is some funding, guys. I'm telling you, this is really expensive. Animation, it costs about $1,000 per minute. I'm not even kidding. It's really pricey. You will not believe it. We're just trying to get the first episode to shop around the studios, get some funding. Maybe we could become a regular part of your Sundays. But in the meantime, we'll still be doing the podcast, uploading memes, strains of the month at the website. We have a big stoner community. Keep on coming around. So as always, stay lifted, my friends. Hey guys, Homer here. Just want to clear the air really quick. I accidentally said it Wax Plus for this rating. I totally meant Dank Plus. I did not mean to give this an absolute perfect rating. It definitely had some flaws in the movie, but overall I really loved it, so it deserves a Dank Plus. And while we're in this end credit scene, I just want to also say how badass the Suicide Squad mid credit scene was. I really loved it. And I also love that Flash cameo. So, haters gonna hate. I love this movie. Stay trippy, y'all.